Good morning, boys and girls. It's Miss Garcia here. It is Wednesday morning, the 18th, so I just wanted to do story time in case you are sitting at home on this rainy day and you just wanted to hear a good story. And I found this one. It's called Those Darn Squirrels, and it's pretty funny. So cozy up somewhere. You can invite a sibling if you want. So we'll just read this together. I'll read first and then I'll show the pictures. On the outskirts of town, at the edge of the forest, there was a little old house. The only thing older than this little house was the man who lived in it, Old Man Fookwire. This town looks a little bit like our town right now, doesn't it? Old Man Fookwire was so old that when he sneezed, dust came out. He was also a grump. He hated pie. He hated puppies. The only thing he liked was birds. All summer long, the old man painted pictures of the birds that visited his backyard. There were whirlybirds and bunga birds, baba birds, and yaba birds. Even a rare flugel bird came by once or twice. Fookwire's paintings weren't very good, but the birds never said anything. Looks like he could use some proper teaching in how to sneeze. When the air turned crisp and the leaves began to change color, the old man grew sad. He knew that soon the birds would fly south for the winter, as they did every year, and that he would be lonely. Then he had an idea. If he fed the birds, maybe they would stick around. Think about, boys and girls, how might Mr. Fookwire be able to feed so many birds? Take a moment, think in your head, or if you have someone sitting nearby, turn and talk to a partner. Okay, let's see how he does this. So that's not correct. Let me reread. So Old Man Fookwire built beautiful bird feeders and put them up all around his backyard. He filled the feeders with delicious seeds and berries, and soon birds came from all over the forest just to eat in the old man's yard. Which of these bird feeders do you like best? I think I like this one. I like that it has different openings and it's indoor, so if it's raining they can squeeze their little bodies in. But the birds weren't the only ones who liked the bird feeders. Who do you think also likes the bird feeders? Give you a clue. The squirrels did too. Not many people know this, but squirrels are the cleverest of all the woodland creatures. In fact, they're fuzzy little geniuses. They can make a house out of a tree, a bed out of a bunch of leaves, and a box kite out of twigs, dirt, and squirrel spit. They're also excellent at math. Winter was fast approaching, and the squirrels needed to gather as much food as they could to get ready. So they decided to take some of the bird food. The birds were not happy. Neither was Old Man Fookwire. When he discovered what had happened, he shook his old man fist and yelled, "Those darn squirrels!" He filled up the feeders again, but this time he hung them from a clothesline. Then he went back inside, confident that the squirrels would no longer be able to get to the seeds and berries. Here's what it looks like on a clothesline. So a clothesline is a piece of string or like wire string that you hang between two things up high so that you can hang clothes when it's warm outside to dry them instead of putting them in the dryer. They kind of look like the wires you might have had in some of your classrooms before this year. I'm looking at this picture and I'm thinking about what I know about squirrels, and I'm wondering, is Mr. Fookwire's plan going to work? Because this looks kind of like squirrels might be able to get to these bird feeders. Why might I think that the squirrels might be able to get past Mr. Fookwire's plan? Turn and talk to a partner. Why might I be thinking squirrels could get past Mr. Fookwire's plan? Okay, well, let's see. But the squirrels were determined. They devised a plan, and this time they took all the food from the bird feeders. Okay, looking at this picture, it didn't work out exactly as I was thinking, but on the last page I was thinking that the squirrels might have gotten past Mr. Fookwire's plan because they can climb. I know that because I've seen plenty of squirrels climb in my own life. So I was thinking they would be able to climb up the poles and onto the clothesline to take the food. It looks like I was sort of right, except they didn't climb up the pole. They climbed up a nearby tree. So sometimes we use information we already know in our heads from real life to think about what might happen in a story, even if it's fiction. That sometimes works. The birds were furious. "Harumph, harumph, harumph," yelled the bonga bird. "Those darn squirrels," yelled Old Man Fookwire. "Yum," said the squirrels. They look quite content there, don't they? Now, it was Old Man Fookwire's turn to devise a plan. He went to the general store to get supplies. He bought lasers and clamps. He bought wires and springs. He bought all sorts of tools and built a veritable fortress around his bird feeders. Then he refilled them very carefully. "Na, na, 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 na," snorted the flugel bird. You can maybe, before you look at the next part, before I hold up the picture, maybe grab a piece of paper and sketch what you think it might look like, this veritable fortress that Mr. Fookwire built using lasers, clamps, wires, springs, and all sorts of tools. And I'll give you a clue. He must have used the tools to build the fortress. They're not actually part of the fortress. So take a moment. If you need to, you can pause if you actually decide to sketch a picture. But I'm going to go ahead and show you this fortress. Is that what you were thinking? Does this look anything like your sketch? Do you think it's going to work? I don't know. The squirrels stayed up all night working out their strategy. They drank cherry cola and ate salt and vinegar chips to help them stay awake. Finally, they had it. The perfect plan. They put on their tiny helmets and prepared to launch themselves into the air, over the fence, between the lasers, and onto the bird feeders. What kind of a machine is that? That type of machine has a name. You guys probably are familiar with that type of machine, though you might not have realized we would call it a simple machine. The first squirrel misfired and hit a tree. The second squirrel went too high and landed in a bucket. The third squirrel sailed clear over the house. The birds laughed and laughed. They each had one last delicious mouthful of seeds and berries from the old man's feeders. Then they flew south for the winter, just as they did every year. After the birds left, Old Man Fookwire was lonely, just as he was every year. He fixed himself some cottage cheese and pepper, his favorite snack, but he was still lonely. When he looked out the window, the squirrels could tell he wasn't happy. "Go away!" shouted the old man. "I don't like you squirrels." Looking at Mr. Fookwire, how can you tell that he's feeling sad and lonely? What gives you a clue? Using his body language. Remember, we look at people's shoulders. We look at whether their heads are held up high or sort of down low. We look at their eyebrows, their eyes, their mouths. All of those things give us clues. What do you see on Mr. Fookwire's body that gives you a clue he's feeling sad and lonely? The squirrels had a meeting deep inside a large tree. They decided to give the old man a present to make up for taking the seeds and berries. Now, not many people know this, but squirrels are not only fuzzy little geniuses, they also collect just about anything they find on the ground. These squirrels had a vast stockpile of spectacular junk to choose from. This kind of makes me think of our makerspace. But what would Fookwire like? Bottle caps, popsicle sticks, postage stamps? Finally, they had it. The perfect gift. What do you think? What do you think the squirrels have decided is the perfect gift for Mr. Fookwire? What do you think? If someone's sitting nearby, turn and share your idea. Okay. The squirrels stacked all of their loose change on old man Let me reread. The squirrels stacked all of their loose change on old man Fookwire's doorstep. There were dimes and pennies. There were nickels and quarters. There were even a few tokens from Coco's arcade. It all added up to $47.36, plus a few rounds of skee-ball. "Maybe you squirrels aren't so bad," Fookwire said when he found the coins, "but I still like birds better." This gave the squirrels another idea. They raided their junk collection again and got to work. Notice when I make a mistake, usually I realize that I've made a mistake because the word that I've said doesn't seem to fit in the sentence. It doesn't make sense. So I have to go back when I make a mistake, and I usually reread the same sentence from the beginning to make sure that I'm understanding what I'm reading with the proper word in place. When Old Man Fookwire woke up the next morning, he was amazed to see that the birds had returned. But wait! Those things weren't birds. They were squirrels in disguise. Great googly moogly, said Old Man Fookwire. This will make quite a painting. He ran outside and took down the lasers and the wires and the spring-loaded trapeze. He turned all the bird feeders into squirrel feeders. Then he painted till his brush ran out of bristles. The squirrels were so overjoyed they had a party in Old Man Fookwire's house. "Those darn squirrels," said Fookwire, and he shook his old man fist and smiled. So I want for you to think about the beginning of the story compared to the end of the story. How did Old Man Fookwire change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story? Think about what were some of his actions, some of his choices, things that he said, his behaviors at the beginning of the story. What kind of a person would you say Mr. Fookwire was at the beginning of the story? Then think about everything that happened in the middle, leading up to the end, and do the same thing for the end of the story, thinking about Mr. Fookwire's actions, his decisions, his behavior, his attitude. How did Mr. Fookwire change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story? And which type of person do you think someone would prefer to be? Old Mr. Fookwire or new Mr. Fookwire? And think about why. Why might someone prefer that version of Mr. Fookwire? Now, after you've done that, here is our last challenge having to do with those darn squirrels. In the book, on the second to last page, we saw these squirrels in disguise. My challenge for you is to sit down with a piece of paper, maybe grab some crayons, the ones from your little envelopes, or if you have colored pencils or markers or paints or any art materials, junk, just like the squirrels did. Maybe you could collect anything that you think would be cool to use and draw a squirrel. And draw a squirrel in disguise. And then you can share it on Seesaw, and all of your classmates can see what you've been working on today. Hopefully you enjoyed this story. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought you guys would like it. So watch out for more information later today, tomorrow, the next day, next week. I'll see you guys definitely Monday morning, if not before that. Okay, have a great day. Stay safe. Wash those hands. All right, I miss you. I'll see you later. Bye.